Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our monthly meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. As is our custom at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Dave Braden to come forward. Mr. Braden is here representing all the employees with Cobb County. And as is our custom, I'd ask you all to please rise, and Mr. Braden will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. All right, for those of you that are here for the first time, let me give you a little insight on how we're going to conduct the meeting today. The first thing that we're going to concern ourselves with is the consent agenda. These are applications that not only this board has reviewed, but our professional and engineering staff have reviewed. To our knowledge, there's no known opposition to any of these particular cases. So as we go forward, Mr. John Peterson, our head zoning administrator, will read these cases into the record, and as he does, the applicant, he or she at that time, will identify themselves by raising their hand. Likewise, if there's anybody here in opposition to any of these cases, they will also identify themselves by raising their hand. If we have opposition to any of these particular cases, we will pull the cases and hear it in its regular numeric order. As we continue on, our officer today is Margie. Where is Margie? There she is. Margie's our officer today. Those of you that are going to give testimony, you're going to be asked to come forward. Margie will swear you in, and all testimony will be given to the podium to my right. At that time, the applicant will have a 10-minute period to make their presentation to the board, and likewise and collectively, those in opposition will also have a 10-minute period to make their opposition known to this board. So if you have more than one speaker, please be cognizant of the fact that you only have a 10-minute period. Now, because we're still under the virus in this county, as we are throughout the whole country, periodically we're going to take some breaks, how our staff can email people that are still either at home or close by waiting to come in. So we will tell you when those breaks will occur, and Cornelius will give you a little heads up so you can start the bumper music if you like a little early. With that said, I'm going to ask Mr. Peterson if he has any other comments to make.
I do, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much. There is one case on today's printed agenda which has been withdrawn and will not be heard today. That's variance case V92, Wright Gardner. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice, will not be heard today. And with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Let's go right to it.
Thank you. Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals, variance hearing consent agenda for July 15, 2020. Variance case V85, Custom Pool Crafters LLC requests a variance to allow an accessory structure or accessory use, which is a pool, to be to the side of the principal building in land lot 340 of the 20th District. The property is located on the west side of Nuttail Lane, north of Catsby Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to development inspections comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V85? The director shows no one opposed. Variance case V86, Pinnacle Custom Signs request a variance to number 1, increase the maximum sign height from 19 feet to 35 feet. Number 2, increase the maximum total sign area allowed per sign from 120 square feet to 467.5 square feet on a lot between 5 and 10 acres. And number 3, increase the maximum total sign structure area allowed from 300 square feet to 525 square feet on a lot between 5 and 10 acres in land lots 649, 650, and 720 of the 16th District. The property is located on the north side of Ernest Barrow Parkway and on the east side of Cobb Place Parkway, southwest of Cobb Place Boulevard. Staff recommends approval, subject to traffic comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V86? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case of V88, Dana Rich Bishop requests a variance to allow accessory structures which are a proposed pool and existing 500 square foot shed with proposed 300 and square foot open air cabana to be to the side of the principal building. Number 2, reduce the required setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an existing 500 square foot shed with proposed 304 square foot open air cabana, 804 square feet total, from required 100 feet to 5 feet to the south adjacent, from 5 feet to the side adjacent to the south property line, and 40 feet to the rear and 90 feet to the front. And number 3, allow parking and/or maneuvering on a not-hardened surface, which is an existing gravel driveway, in land lots 769 and 816 of the 16th District. The property is located on the east side of Holly Springs Road, across from the Timber Creek Trail. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, traffic comments. Number 2, development inspection comments. And number 3, stormwater comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V88? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V89, Kathy C. Chrysler, Joseph Hunt Chrysler, and Karen Rich. Request a variance to number 1, allow an accessory structure, which is an existing approximately 187 square foot shed to the side of the principal building on lots 5 and 6. And number 2, reduce the side setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an existing approximately 187 square foot shed from required 10 feet to 0 feet adjacent to the west property line of lot 5 and to 0 feet to the east property line of lot 6 and land lot 480 of the 16th District. The property is located on the north side of Princeton Lane, north of Idlewood Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to development inspections comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V89? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case of V90, Gary Wirt requests a variance to increase the maximum sign area for wall sign for a tenant from 49 square feet to 158 square feet in land lot 645 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Ernest Barrett Parkway, east of Roberts Court, west of Interstate 575. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V90? Nope. Let the record show there's no one opposed. And we're going to delete variance case V91 from the consent agenda because there is one person here opposed, so we're going to hear V91 in its regular order today.
Okay.
Variance case V93, Todd Kern and Melanie Kern request a variance to number 1, reduce their rear setback from required 30 feet to 17 feet, and to reduce the side setback from required 10 feet to 5 feet, which is existing, in land lot 601 of the 16th District. The property is located at the northern terminus of Lulworth Lane, south of Barnhill Drive. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V93? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And Mr. Chairman of the Board, that completes the consent agenda.
Okay, it's back to this board for discussions, comments. Fellow board members, commissioners, anybody have any comments at all? Fred?
Yes, even though staff has assured me that no portion of the pool area or decking on V85 is within the shown drainage easement, just due to the lack of clarity in the drawing, I would just like to amend that to add a stipulation that no portion of the pool, deck, or decking is allowed in any drainage easement.
Okay, got that. Any other comments from board members? Not hearing any, I'll entertain a motion then.
Make a motion.
Okay,
We approve as revised.
as revised, with the exception of V91, do I have a second to that? Second, Ms. Williams. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by raising your hands, and we've got a 5-0 vote. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to approve that with a 5-0. Those of you that are here in the audience, physically in the audience, and if you are on the consent agenda, your business is complete with us for today. Now, you're welcome to stay, but if you leave, please leave quietly, and we'll continue on with our business. John, I guess at this time we need to take a break, how we can do some maneuvering to let all the folks in the parking lots know what's going on. So with that said, Cornelius, we're going to take probably a 5-minute break. Okay, good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. We're back to our monthly meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. And at this time, Mr. Peterson, I guess the first thing we'll hear is the held case from last month. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, John, would you please go ahead and read that into the record? We'll get started with that.
Yes, sir. Variance case V49, Zachary J. Wright, requests a variance to number 1, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an approximately 2,800 square foot garage, from required 100 feet to 11 feet adjacent to the southern property line, and to 8 feet adjacent to the western property line and land lot 177 of the 20th district. The property is located on the west side of Kennesaw Duas Road, north of Bluff Drive. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to this case? Please raise your hands. Let the record show there's 6 people here in opposition. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
All right, anybody's going to give testimony, come forward.
I do.
Okay, for the purpose of the record, young man, if you would, please give me your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Adam Rosen here for your applicant.
Okay, Adam, now I think we're all pretty familiar. I'm just going to give you a little leeway here. We're all pretty familiar with everything that's taken place. We are all familiar with the last meeting, so you have a 10-minute period to do whatever you like. If I were you, I'd concentrate on the new things or what's happened since the last meeting. With that said, Mr. Rosen, go right ahead.
I will take your instructions, and I was going to say I'm not going to go back through that presentation that I'm sure is scaring you to see being on the screen again, but we also are appreciative of the time that we did have last month. This is the 3rd time this case has been on your agenda. Was only heard for the first time last month, and at your vote was continued or was held after being heard to allow us the opportunity to work on a number of concerns that we heard from the folks that I think are all also here again today. So I will focus on what we have done since that time, now that you know the case in itself. We did have the opportunity to meet with nearby residents a couple of weeks ago in the Kennesaw subdivision adjoining Mr. Wright's property. And as is customary with those meetings, we aired out a little bit of dirty laundry and were able to also talk some productive areas as well. And what I've tried to do is embody what we took from that meeting and what was submitted to you earlier this week in the form of a revision to the stipulation letter that we submitted to you in June before last hearing. And I think the short answer is we've added to and particularized a lot of the conditions from that last letter. And some of the additions are things that we learned and heard from actually meeting in person on site or close to on site a couple of weeks ago. So what I want to do is go quickly through the conditions that are in that letter. Although you received it, I think it is helpful and will give us an opportunity to address each of those. The first thing that's in there that's different, but has not been a change necessarily in our intention, is to clarify that it is our intention that these conditions be binding on the subject property. There's a question about that being in one of the numerical numbers in the letter. I think we can have John clarify, but it's our intention to make these conditions be binding on the subject property so that the next Mr. Wright that owns this property will also be subject to the same conditions. And that was a concern that we heard when we met. We've also changed number 1 of that letter, changes the reduction in the variance request for the rear setback. Although moving the building in any way, because the concrete foundation is already poured, is a significant endeavor by Mr. Wright to regrade the property, to re-pour a foundation, which also means replacing and adding new footings for the structure of the foundation. He's found 8 more feet to move the building forward and away from who's probably our most affected neighbor, the Potters, that is the residents behind us. So that's number one. Same with the building. The building is purchased, the materials are purchased, which we've talked about before. And so any change to the building size itself is similarly difficult, although in this case, we can't just re-pour the foundation. We have to buy a new building because the structure and the integrity of the materials would be changed. Just like moving a wall in your house, you have to look at where the load-bearing walls are in relation to the structural changes that you're making. We already had the trench drain and the stormwater management concerns that were addressed from Stormwater Management Division's recommendations before. That's still there. We still have the condition to not allow any commercial purposes for the garage. We've clarified, I've changed from race car to Ford Taurus, that it will not be driven on Kennesaw Due West. We have the same limitation on hours as far as it's being run outside of the garage. We also added in, after some of the comments and discussion last month, about a muffling device on the vehicle. So we're trying to address any way we can to address the sound complaints that we have heard throughout this process. Number 6 is the insulation, that sound deadening insulation that has already been purchased that we showed you a picture of before. We've added in the limitation of the square footage of the building so that everyone in the room knows that when he actually goes through the plan review process, he's not going to be able to apply for an even bigger building. And so that was clarified. We clarified again that all work on any vehicles or boats or otherwise on the property is going to be inside the garage. That's something, of course, like these others, that is not in place today. The previously installed fencing, landscaping, all of that is stipulated to be maintained and to remain on the property. We've also proposed additional planning on the properties of our adjoining neighbors, the property to the rear, the Potter residence, and then one of the properties that adjoins us north of the site, and I'll show you those in just a minute. We added in that the garage will not be habitable. I think that was without saying, but that wasn't specifically in the letter before, so you have that additional clarification. And then number 13, we added a number of items to. I think everyone knows that we are subject to plan review because of the size of the building, and going back through that process in order to make sure that our building conforms to a residential character like our primary structure. But we actually gave you some examples of what, can we go back to that? Gave you some examples of what Mr. Wright has in mind for the building itself to actually look like. And we specifically identified the different materials at different areas of the building. We've also looked at the view of the building towards the Potter residence behind us and stipulated that he would install a shuttered window like that bottom one shown on that, what was Exhibit C in our letter. So we've tried to address all of the aesthetic questions and concerns that we heard throughout this process as well by doing that. We also know that during the plan review process, the fire department and all the other departments are going to look at this. So we know that we have each concern in each area of the building addressed by all of those departments. Overall, we've created, I think, a sound and visual barrier. We've proposed the additional landscaping, the property that's just north of ours, 2352, and then behind us, 2415. And you can see, again, showing you the differences in the distances from where this garage will be to the homes that are adjoining ours. And so in addition to the distance that we added by moving the building forward, we're proposing additional landscaping. If you look again at, and being on site really helps, if you look at where this building is proposed to sit and looking at the view in each direction, even looking towards the street, we've created, and what's existing creates a full barrier on all sides of the building. And so that was something that we thought was important. And again, you can see the view towards another neighbor in that direction through the rest of Mr. Wright's property. The only thing that has not changed is the building size. which of course we've talked about is the difficulty of we don't have the ability to change the building size without purchasing a new building because of the structure of the materials. But the building is hidden, you're not going to hear it. So that concern is addressed without having to change the size of the building. We know that there has been a lot of frustration throughout the process in this application, and I'll take credit for a lot of those as far as the application itself and going through this process, but I think Mr. Wright's commitment to doing the right thing has been there throughout the process. He's done a lot to even, he probably hates me for getting him to agree to what we put in this letter, but I think he's done a lot to show his goodwill. And so hopefully that has been recognized. And again, we appreciate your time for going through it so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you just have a seat at this time, we'll hear from the opposition. Okay, first thing, let's identify each and every one of you. Start with you, young lady. What's your name, please?
Alexandra Potter.
Say that again.
Alexandra Potter.
Okay, thank you. Next person.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Abigail Brousseau.
Okay.
Joy Carlisle.
And Brian Moody.
Okay, Brian, whoever wants to start, let's go ahead, Ms. Potter.
I'm actually the owner of the property right behind Mr. Wright. And one of my biggest concern was before I purchased this house, I used to live in Marietta and in a subdivision with a pool. And I absolutely fell in love with this particular house because it's in the cul-de-sac, and in the back it has trees, and it's an absolute peace of mind. With this building that Mr. Wright is trying to build, it's overpowering, and it's absolutely gonna devalue the property of my house. So the effort that I put in to move from one house to the other, it's not gonna matter, because regardless of how this building it's gonna be, it's still gonna overpower my house. And according to Cobb County, it's supposed to be 100 feet away from my property, and he does not have 100 feet away from my property to build. And a house is something that everybody is like the biggest investment in a family, and I don't want my hard work to be completely gone for the simple fact that somebody feels like in a residential area he could build something that's absolutely commercial, regardless of what we were told. You know, when you have a race car driving in that particular building, it's gonna make noise because it has before, and it's not gonna be the same value of the property that I had when I purchased the house.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm here to discuss a couple
Again,
things.
give us your name again.
Oh, this is Joy Carlisle again.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Wright said that he does not do commercial. He's not doing a business. He told us when we met with him, if you have a loss, it's not a business. But yet, as you see, he's selling promotional products with his race car driver on. So this is a commercial building, whatever y'all want to believe. Also, if you look at your code, the accessory structure over 600 total square feet must be 100 feet from all property lines. He already has a structure. How many structures can we build? I came here early today. If you look at the corner of your wood there, go all the way to the wall, that's 70 feet. And if you add another 8 feet, that's how tall he's going to be. If you add another 8 feet on the side, that's how wide he is. Can you comprehend? It's bigger than any of our structures around. It's a metal building. No matter how much rock he puts around the bottom, he's devaluing our homes, and he's making a big, problem. And here, put this up here, please. This is my next door neighbor. I'm actually Mr. Wright's next door neighbor because between me and Mr. Wright, the home has been vacant ever since he's lived there. The man he hasn't got an occupancy certificate. So this is my other next door neighbor on the other side of me on July 4th. Their house burned down. So are y'all going to require sprinklers? He's got highly flammable materials in his building. You know, we've already lived through a lot of fires, planes down, all kinds of destruction around us without adding something that's going to cause us more pain and trouble. And we really appreciate it if you would follow the code. And like I said, the question is how many buildings can we build on our property? He already has a large garage with carport attached. And this is 2,800 square feet footprint that could go 2 stories if he decided to, or the next person decided to make it 2 stories inside. So we appreciate if y'all would follow the code.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hey, Abigail Brousseau, and hope y'all are doing good. Appreciate you taking the time to look at this again. You know, just touching on what everybody else already shared, I think the main concern is just the size of the structure and the proximity to Miss Potter's land. When you stand in the back of that property, it is I think it will rise 28 feet. We're still not really sure exactly. We've been given some, you know, diagrams of what it could potentially look like, but there's no actual plan. So the confusion with the materials have already been built, and the argument that we need to stay where it's at because the materials have been built. If the materials have been purchased, there's not an accurate depiction of what the building is going to look like. All we've been given is just, this is what you can suppose. So beside the just sheer size, it's the actual volume of the structure. I think the trees that were planted could go 5 to 10 years to get about 10 to 15 feet tall. The building's going to be about 25 feet tall. The plan states that it won't be 2 stories, and if there's not a second story in the actual garage, yeah, it's not 2 stories, but it doesn't matter that it's looming over our neighbor's property. So the whole reason for us being here is the devaluing of a comparable property within our neighborhood. So if Alexandra goes to sell her house and has to take a 20% loss because somebody goes, I like it, but you know what? I can only offer you this much money, $20,000 less than what the other comparables are. That structure looming when I have my coffee, and it's still, you can't tell until you stand back there on her porch to understand not just the noise. The noise is a big issue, and I sent y'all an email of what we're actually dealing with. You know, the burnouts in the driveway. Zach has promised that he's not going to do that. I trust that he won't. But the activity inside the garage with the doors, the aluminum doors up, is going to affect her. So when she goes to sell, her comparable will affect my property value. And so it just has a trickle down effect, and it also sets a precedent. If we allow this and go against the code of the county for a certain reason, what about all the other properties around us that are going to start building, you know, huge commercial buildings in a residential area? It's just quality of life, value of property. And, you know, I won't even get into all the other discrepancies we've gone through before. But, I mean, I do appreciate y'all hearing us. We do appreciate the concessions that have been offered. But even another 8 feet pushing that structure back, it will continue to loom over her backyard, which will generate noise. It'll generate the loss of peace and serenity and the loss of the home value, which in turn affects myself and the rest of our neighborhood. Do you want to say something, Brian?
So I'm Brian Moody. Good. I'm the president of the HOA, and my neighbors have pretty much stated everything that I had on my agenda to state. So as president of the HOA, I just have to say that the entire neighborhood is against this. No one from our neighborhood has approved the application that we are aware of. I think the only other thing I can add to what Abby was saying was the precedent being set. Of course, they would still have to come to you guys, but they could always then point to the fact that, hey, this has been done here or this has been done here. And that puts us, we feel like, that also puts us at a disadvantage by letting this be done. The other thing that I've listened to Mr. Rosen say is that Mr. Wright, while he is a very nice person and from a personality standpoint, we don't have any problems with Mr. Wright, but his decisions to move forward should not have to, we should not be punished for those decisions to move forward without following procedure and protocol. And so anything that falls, that would cause more expense, I hate it for him, but that's not a problem of ours. And so we don't want to be then held responsible financially for a decrease in our property values if that happens. So the only person that has anything to gain here is Mr. Wright. And that's part of our problem. Anyway, thank you very much.
Okay, we've got 10 seconds left. Anybody, 10 seconds? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
He was very dishonest from the beginning. That was like my biggest issue.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, I declare the public session over with. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Fred Beloit, who's the district representative. Fred, would you lead us in the discussion, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of questions to pose first of everybody who spoke here, starting with counsel for the applicant. If I could just this isn't in our book, so can you tell me which neighbors, if any, currently support the application?
The consent of contiguous landowners form that we submitted in June is the neighbor across Kennesaw Due West from us. I have it, which should be in the record from last month. We do not have consent from I guess we don't have a pointer. Is this a pointer?
No, they can't see.
I guess you can go back to
The young man
that.
behind you, if you tell him, he can point.
Looking at this one, 2356, I believe, sold within the last few months while this was pending for a gain. And I don't think, I don't know if they signed the petition. 2352 is Ms. Brousseau. 2350, I don't remember if they signed the petition. I know one of those three did not. Ms. Potter is to the rear of us, 2415. 2115 is building a home there, and that is where the materials were stored for a period of time. He has not signed the petition in opposition. He, from Mr. Wright's understanding, has a good relationship with and is not opposed to the application. If that answers your question.
Okay, so 2215, no opposition, but no consent either.
2115, no opposition.
I'm sorry?
We do not have a consent form from, no, correct, just across the street.
Okay. And then one complaint that was levied was they don't have current plans, elevations, things of that nature to kind of get a really good handle on precisely what the view change is going to be from the various residences. Is that something that could get done or get accomplished so we can?
I think collectively we have the building plan that has been shown to you by the opposition that shows the dimensions of the building. In addition to what we've stipulated as architecture, you can see what the building is going to look like. The only thing that we could add to that would be a profile taken from the different points around the property. Respectfully, I think we have shown you a lot of what that would look like by showing you the way the property sits and the way that the building will be on the property. But that would be the only thing else we could do, I think, would be to find an architectural firm to give us a profile to show you what it would look like.
Yeah, my concern is just in fairness to the applicant and in fairness to all the opponents, is just to make sure, so you and I and your client met out there one Sunday. It was warm. I can't remember precisely when, I guess back in May, and went to the rear property line. In the house behind you, Ms. Potter's house, I take it that's Ms. Potter's house. It's somebody's house back there does sit down to the lower elevation than the slab. So my concern is just simply that we get a clear understanding of the extent to which the structure would impact the view from that property very particularly. And with that, I just open it up to all my colleagues to ask any questions of applicant's counsel or applicant.
Anybody have any comments, questions?
Yeah, I might. So, Adam, I appreciate that you guys have reached out and done, a lot of the work that you've done around some of these stipulations and that sort of thing. It doesn't sound like we're quite where we want to be at this point to have everybody walk out of here happy. And I don't know that we will, but I'm trying to just think through some other options, because it seems like, lines have been drawn and I don't feel any movement necessarily beyond what you've already proposed, because obviously Mr. Wright has purchased the building materials and poured the foundation, so it's kind of like those were some givens here. And I'm looking at the site plan, and I know the code dictates, in terms of setbacks for an accessory structure, but I'm looking at the building line there of 35 feet off the property. I'm just wondering, if the garage were moved a little bit forward behind that building line, it's going to require, obviously, probably, repouring some of the foundation or something, but it at least moves it from, that 8 feet from the one property line, and then it'd be a little further than 11. It looks like, is that something that might be considered?
So I think generally he has tried to consider what all the different options are. That 8-foot rear line is now being proposed to be 16. But if we were to look at moving it entirely, that would be entirely repouring the foundation, not just, changing it. But that 35-foot building line would still require a variance because of the
I got it.
typical 100
I got
feet.
it.
But
I'm just-
that would move it away. One of the problems that we talked more about before is, I think you can see in this first picture that shows the variance sign, you can see the falling off of the front yard, and that's his home foundation is built up for the purposes of the home, but that's about the topography character that he is dealing with, and that's what we showed you here. And so that's partly why the buildings, you can see, there's a lot of space north and west of the lot because it falls off. So I don't know if it could be built.
I just wanted to suggest that as something
Yeah.
that might be considered. And again, I don't know if anybody would be happy with it, but it seems like, it might help address some of the concerns that have been raised. That's all I got.
All right, anybody else, comments, questions?
Just a brief comment. When this started, and I might be wrong about this, was this didn't you have it on the consent agenda in the beginning? So much is going on, I might have this wrong.
Originally, it was my understanding that the neighbors consented to the project. That was my understanding. And we do not get in our application package indicia of whether or not the neighbors have signed off or not. So that was my initial understanding. But that has obviously proven not to be the case.
Okay. So you did go out, you walked the property, and
Oh, yes.
at that time, you didn't have a problem with it, and then the neighbors showed up and then were opposed to the sign? Or we got filled in on
Well,
what, the race car and all that was going
You
on?
said didn't have a problem with it. I would always have had a concern, particularly for the neighbor to the rear of the property, given the relative elevations of the properties. However, if they were good with it, that would make the project, I would have a more favorable view of the project had the neighbor behind consented. But without that consent, I have a concern that we need to take care to be certain to do what we can to mitigate any possible adverse effect on the rear neighbor's property value.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Williams, Mr. Wright met with Mr. Potter on the foundation and talked about the fence and the landscaping that he put in between the rear property and ours. And Ms. Potter is here today, but so what we understood at the time, and we had at that point had not heard from any neighbors north of us, and so we did not have the same knowledge I guess we have now. Maybe that answers your question.
Go, do you have a question?
Are we doing comments or questions?
Actually,
Just,
either or.
okay, I'll just make my comments on it right now. Our code requires a 100-foot setback from all property lines for a structure that's a quarter the size of this. You know, if they wanted to bring just 700 square feet, it would have to be 100 feet, which basically there's no place on this property you could put it because it's not big enough to accommodate that. So it gives me great concern when you're talking about something 2,800 square feet, even if it was being built more like a residential garage. This is being built as a commercial structure being put on a residential property. The wall heights are far higher than a normal garage. The garage doors are commercial garage doors, they aren't residential. It's not gonna look like a residential structure no matter what you do to it. And we're talking about a variance going down to 11 feet from 100 feet. You know, that's like a 10x factor. It just, you know, makes no sense. I appreciate, you know, working with the neighbors and trying to come up with something, but I really think he ought to be looking at something more in a 650 square foot building that he could make the setbacks on versus something of this size. And I understand he's purchased the building to great expense. And unfortunately, sometimes people make mistakes and it costs them money. You know, and I don't like seeing them have to waste money, but I also don't want to make an ongoing problem on this property forever. And it's not fair to the neighbors who, you know, I think make a pretty good case for the fact that they're going to be adversely affected by this. And I do have a question for John. How many vehicles are they allowed to have outside on this property? And does that include the ones that are the trailers in that? I see on this old one that we have some boats and things parked back there on what looks to be dirt. You know, so I want to maybe clear up what the requirements are by code for the parking of all these vehicles and that, because one thing he said is, I can't put all my stuff, you know, I have all this stuff and I want to put it inside, but the problem is what he has right now appears to be violating Cobb County ordinance as well.
Based on the size of the house, he's allowed to have one vehicle per 390 square feet inside the house. So I'm not sure how big this house is. It's probably about as big as that garage, a little bit, maybe a little bit smaller. So he'd probably get 4 or 5 cars on the property. And the boats and trailers would be permitted as long as they're tagged and they're parked on a hardened surface.
Okay, and that's the one issue I was seeing there, so I want to make that clear. Of course, now he has a great big hardened surface to park things on. But that was one of my concerns in looking at this. And is there a limit on how many accessory structures he can have?
No, it's just size.
Just size, okay. So that clarifies the one question that was asked. So he can have a second garage or whatever. And I think he could build one just under 650 square feet, which is essentially a 3-car garage on this. That I think would store all of his stuff and make it appear residential. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Gold. Anybody else? Fred, it's back to you, sir.
Yeah, I have more questions for the opposition. Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Let me start with Ms. Potter, if I could. If I understand it correctly, what's important to you in terms of maintaining your property value are to have a tree line behind you, to have foliage behind you? Is that one of the things that is a concern of yours?
No, it's just the size of the building. It's overpowering.
Right, you said size and height of the building, I have that, and then you expressed a concern about noise. You mentioned trees, I don't know if that was important to you or not, that's why I asked, but that's
It is, because I'm sorry. Yes, it is, because regardless of how you're trying to cover the noise, when you're gonna take the cars out or whatever you do, that's a commercial. It's not for residential, and it's gonna make noise regardless.
Okay. And will you allow me to access your backyard in order to assess possible other plans? If we can get that thing, some sort of garage further back off your property, potentially still within 100 feet of the property line, but further back off your property so as to do less harm to your view? Are you willing to allow me on your property to take a look at that situation?
You could take a look, but the only problem is we don't have 100 feet. He doesn't have 100 feet regardless how you look of our properties. And the values of our properties are going to be impacted because it's absolutely, there's no room. Regardless how you look, like, first of all, my house is right next to it, and then every other house, regardless how we try to build this, because of the size and because of the noise, it's gonna impact every single one of the properties in the subdivision.
Well, I'll take that as a yes, and if they're willing to continue the process, I will plan to get myself out there to get a clear handle on what would create a visual problem. And I'm not suggesting that we're about to approve this particular structure as designed. I'm just suggesting that if they're going to do anything within that 100 feet, we're going to have to get a handle on that. Thank you. Okay.
And Fred, before we go any further.
Any other questions of?
No, ma'am, you can have a seat. I just want to point out, as I pointed out at the last meeting, that's the reason we have a variance board. You have the right to come before this board and ask for a variance. We see, as I indicated last month, we see these kind of variances all the time. So that 100-foot is not locked in stone. That's the reason there's a variance board. So it's not a question of you're not going to get the 100 feet. It's a question of what is going to be fair and reasonable to everybody concerned. And again, that's our job, and that's why he has the right to come before us. So I want kind of everybody to understand that this is not unusual for us to hear these type of things. So I want to put that in context. Fred, I'll go back to you.
Thank you. Okay. I could call and ask, I could call other opponents back up and ask further clarifying questions. I'll just say this. I'm not sure what the fire down the street has to do with this application, if anything. I'm not sure what any sales of T-shirts by the applicant may or may not have to do with the use of enjoyment of adjoining properties by the neighbors. So I'm not sure how to take that into account. Maybe other members of this group might have some thoughts in that regard, but I really don't. I do appreciate the height concerns. I appreciate the size concerns. I appreciate the need to establish clear limitations on potential commercial activity. And I think what I'm going to have to do is to work further with the applicant and the neighbor, particularly to the rear, to see if we can come up with anything that's mutually beneficial to the applicant and the adjoining homeowners. And if we cannot, then at that point, I think I would welcome the applicant to either withdraw the application or move to deny it. But I think my motion at this time is going to be to hold it again to allow that process. And with that, I welcome comments from the other members of this group.
First of all, I've got a motion. I need a second, or I have a motion to hold it.
I'll second, I do have.
Now for discussion. Go
Okay,
right ahead.
yeah. If I could, I guess I've got one question for the opposition, and I will ask Ms. Potter to come back up for just a minute, since we do have this opportunity right now. And, given everything that has been brought up, today in the hearing, I'm just wondering, what do you think might be a reasonable compromise in this situation, given Mr. Wright's request? I mean, we all know what the code is. We all know what he would like to do. What might work, in your opinion?
Well, consider the affects the value of the property of an entire subdivision. He could find another land and build whatever he wants to build, as big as he wants to build it.
Yeah, so what I'm looking for is compromise as opposed to, all or nothing. Is there some reasonable compromise?
With that size of the building, that's the issue, sir. That's because the size is way bigger than, regardless of,
So
that's.
if it's moved further off the property line than what's been discussed, where you can't see it,
It's just not gonna make a difference. My whole opinion is, like, if you wanna build something like that, you could find land and build it in any other place, not in the residential area.
okay, thank you. That's it.
Anybody else have questions for anybody? Ms. Williams?
Okay. This is the neighbor that you asked permission to go on the property, is that correct?
It's the
And
rear
I think she
neighbor.
clicked, Ms. Potter, yeah.
Come back up, ma'am. We're
I'm
not-
sorry. We call on you because you're the adjacent. I'm sorry. So if I understood from your statement, you don't have any room for negotiation, so holding it, what would that accomplish if you think he shouldn't have it at all? In your opinion?
In my opinion, it's different if you have something that's the side of a garage, but what he's looking at building, it's not. So consider the size of it. I don't see how we'll be able to compromise because it's gonna affect the value of the property.
So if you could reduce it to 650 square feet, is that something you would look at during Fred's holding, or something that's compatible with what's out there in the neighborhood?
The problem is, like, because he has race car, like, that's what he's using for race cars, that particular, it's just not gonna feel like a residential.
Okay.
It's
All right.
ju-
Thank you. I don't mean to put you on the spot. was
I
just
understand, no, but.
Trying to get, one of the issues that seemed to come out over and over again was the race car, the name on the race car, and how we could put that in some place where y'all couldn't see the race car. So that did come out time and time again. I'm trying not to say the race car's name, but,
Well, and not to mention that, if
Turbo.
that property is built, 5 years along the line, somebody else purchased that property, they're gonna be like, oh, we could have a, motorcycle back here.
right.
And then I'll have a good year in the back of my,
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Gulf, do you have
I
any?
just have a quick question for John. I think I'm right on this. If they build under 660 square feet, they just have to be within the 35-foot rear setback and the 10-foot side
If it's
setback?
under 650, so if it's 649, it just has to meet the building setbacks for the lot.
Yeah, so they can clearly build that without a variance.
Correct.
Okay.
What would they be? What would they be?
They would just, if it's under 650 square feet, they just have to meet these building line setbacks that are on the plan here of 35 feet in the rear and 10 in the side, and he can build 649 square feet.
Which would hold the race car.
Yeah, that would
And
be
some
a
other
three-car garage
garage.
essentially. They
Okay.
could put the boat, whatever else that is, jet skis or whatever it is, and the car in it.
He also could do, John, I have a question. I'm just loaded with questions stuff. If he did 650 on one end, and you have he poured his own footings apparently, but that was his mistake, not ours. Could you put a canopy over the rest of it? Or is that considered,
If it's attached to the building, it's considered part of the square footage.
so that would be considered square footage if you put a canopy over the rest? You know where I'm going?
Yes.
Yeah, so he couldn't do that either then? Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me kind of bring us all back together. Again, this is a variance board. They're here asking for a reasonable request. reasonable in some minds, not reasonable in other minds. I have a motion to continue this case. Got a motion, I've got a second. But now, to kind of bring us all back together, I don't want us to walk out of here without, I'd like to add some more things to Mr. Wright's, if we're going to continue this for the next 30 days. And that is, I'd like you to go back to your engineers and see what the height of the building, how that can be reduced, number one. Number two is how we can bring this building back down to a more reasonable square footage, that we have a little give and take. Understand, as Gulf pointed out, he can build whatever the hell he wants at 649 square feet, and it may not be acceptable to neighbors. It might be just trash that you don't want in the neighborhood. What I'm trying to get at is, let's see if he can come back, redo this thing. It's a metal building, so you get welders out there, you can cut this stuff up, or maybe you can send it back to the manufacturer and buy something different. I don't know. That's a responsibility that I can't take on. But these are just thoughts that I think we all have, and we come back in a month and let's see what we can bring together that everybody can be acceptable for. It is not an unusual request. The size of the building is a little more than unusual that we see, but the request for the 100-foot difference, we see this all the time. Okay, that's my high horse down. Fred, it's back to you. Do you have any other comments before we call for the vote?
Yeah, just my only comment is, a lot of the opponents suggested that allowing the car to be there is something we have before us to consider, and it's not. The car's already there. The noise element's already there. One of my principal concerns is that where we start is a situation where I think some people in the neighborhood are already upset with what is. So I saw this as an opportunity to try to craft something that created a win-win for everybody concerned. It's not going to be easy. I appreciate the comments of all my colleagues here, but I think that's our goal and our job. And if we can't do it, then we can always just deny it. But based on the comments I heard here today, I think that's where we are.
And by the same token, as far as the car is concerned, he's given up an awful lot. The noise ordinance, the no driving, the no this, the no that. I mean, there's ways of controlling that, and I think if we have something we all agree on, that we can get it in writing and get the county to be responsible if he messes up. He's entitled to have that car in his property. I mean, we can't stop him from doing that. So there's got to be a little give and take on both sides, and I think that's where Fred's coming from. Got a motion, I've got a second. No other comments, call for the vote. Signify yes by raising your hands. In favor, that's 3. Opposed? Okay, we're going to hold this case, we're going to continue this case for 30 days till our next scheduled meeting with a 3-2 split vote. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And again, if you leave, please leave quietly and we'll continue on. Mr. Peterson, where am I?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Variance case V87, Jose A. Enzores Santa Rosa requests a variance to reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an approximately 480 square foot storage shed, for required 30 feet from the rear to 5 feet, and from required 10 feet from the side to 5 feet adjacent to the east property line in land lot 142 of the 20th District. The property is located on the south side of New Rutledge Road, east of Owings Meadow Drive. Is the applicant present? Yeah, the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V87? None? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Do you want that young man to come with you? Yes, my son. Okay, come on, son, come on up, let me get you sworn in. You go up there with your dad, with the other gentleman. Okay, fellas, come on up there. Okay, before we get started, I need to get your name for the record. Sir, tell me your name first.
My name is Jose Antonio Ansores.
Okay, and young man,
My name's John Edgar Anzuris.
are you going to be the interpreter?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, tell us what you want. What are you all asking for today?
Dile que quiero hacer mi storage para guardar mi herramienta y mi equipo de trabajo.
We want to build a storage just so we can put our equipment and tools in there.
All right, get a little closer to the microphone.
We want to build a storage to store our equipment and tools.
Okay, how big of it? This is a picture of your house, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Tell us how big the building's going to be.
Lo quiero como de 15 por 30. Like 15 by 30.
15 by 30.
50 by 30. All right, well, give us a little more information. What's going to be made out of?
De que va a ser quiero ponerle cemento, una placa de cemento y framearlo con madera.
We want to make the foundation cement and the rest would be just wood.
Wood.
Yes.
Can you tell us anything else about the building?
No, nada más el building.
No, we just want just the building there, just to store our stuff.
Fred, I'm going to turn this over to you. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in opposition to case V87? Hearing and not seeing anybody. It's back to this board for question. Ms. Fred Berloin will lead us that discussion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming here today, gentlemen. Can you just tell me a little bit about, in our book, where it shows a survey or plat for the property, it shows a drainage easement and some sort of a sewer easement back there. Are you familiar with those being back there?
Cornelius, could you give them a book and show them, do you have a book that you could show them what we're talking about? Or maybe even better, put it up on a screen.
Right, then everybody can see it.
Now, young man, you see where he's talking about, where you're on the stormwater management, you're on the
Drainage easement.
drainage easement.
Sí.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, can you move the building back to get it out of the drainage easement?
Más para atrás. Más para enfrente.
Towards the building of our home or in the back of where the fence is?
If you look and you see, Fred, am I jumping in the wrong?
You're fine, Mr. Chairman.
If you look and you see where the new storage building proposal is, you see where that square is down at the bottom?
Yes, sir.
That's in a drainage easement. You've got to get it out of that. Can you move that building and move it closer to your house?
Dile que el draining que está ahí está separado como 10 pies, donde lo quiero poner.
Es que está arriba de la pared.
No,
There is like a pole that's kind of like in the middle of our property, and that's where we think that's where it would separate from.
A pole?
Yes, kind of where the drainage would be at, and it's like 10 feet away from the storage building.
Can you draw? I mean, if I gave you my book, can you draw where that pole is? Or can you draw in this book here?
I think we're also missing that there's a sewer easement down there as well, which is probably more important.
Oh, well, we'll let the county speak to, we'll let the county folks speak to that. Yeah.
Okay, the draining is the line draining is here, over here, right?
And I have 5 foot from my property line to draining to the wood fence.
Okay.
And I take all their 5 foot from the wood fence from here to my storage. So total is 10 foot separate with the storage.
Can you just show us where this pole is that your son just referenced? How far in?
La base, the big base, right? It's like over here.
Oh, so it's not in the backyard?
Yeah, it's in the
It's not
back.
anywhere it's going to impact the location of the storage building, right? Okay, let me go ahead and ask the county officials who can comment on the drainage easement and sewer easement, so then we can make a determination of what can be done. You can have a seat first, if you'd like.
Yeah, Tim Davidson, Cobb County Water System. Yeah, that's a 30-foot combined sanitary and drainage easement. So it's a little bit of both. And basically, in speaking with stormwater management folks, we agree that if they can just get the building to the edge of the easement, to not be inside the easement, we're not going to hold them to any additional setback. It appears that the combined 30-foot easement is centered on the back property line. So doing the math, about 15 feet from the property line would be sufficient for the building placement.
Okay, so if we had a stipulation that they can build it to the 30-foot drainage easement and sewer easement line as noted on this plat, that would be sufficient for your purposes?
That would be acceptable, yes.
Okay.
You need to measure it out there.
Does anyone else have any comments or need for
don't.
questions for anyone?
I don't think so. I think we're ready. And plan review will probably take care of all the incidentals.
Okay. My motion would be to go ahead and approve the request for variance, provided that we revise it to allow for them to invade the rear setback, but only to the extent that they keep all footings and all portions of the new storage building outside of the 30-foot drainage easement and sewer easement as shown at page 38 of my variance analysis book that was provided to me by the county. The side setback is fine by me as requested. That'd be my motion.
Motion, do I have a second?
I would second, but I have a question. John, then they don't need the other variance, then the variance would change, right?
No, they do need the other one.
Yeah,
Because
but
it's
they
still
would-
5 feet to the property line on the side, so they would need the side setback of 5 feet for the side.
And then
And
the
then the
rear.
rear would be adjusted to whatever the edge of the drainage easement.
But it wouldn't be
No.
15 feet.
It'd probably be about 15-ish.
Okay, so that rear should be 15.
Do we want to get the word 15 in there, Fred?
That's fine. Then in that case, I would ask that my motion be amended to further stipulate that that no portion of the building or the footings for the building can be within 15 feet of the rear property line.
Okay.
Okay, motion, second. No other comments? Call for the vote. 5-0. You're done. Good. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. You guys are okay. John, where am I? Last one.
Last one. Variance case V91, Elro Signs, request a variance to increase the maximum sign area for wall signs for a tenant from 49 square feet to 176 square feet total in land lots 386, 387, 406, 407 of the 16th district. The property is located on the east side of Sandy Plains Road, south of Shallowford Road. Is the applicant present? The applicant is present, and there are 2 people here in opposition, Mr. Chairman. So I would ask all those folks.
3 in opposition.
3 in opposition? Okay, 3 in opposition. So I would ask the applicant and any opposition to come forward, be sworn in.
Anybody that's going to speak, come up and get sworn in. Okay, let's start off with your name, please, first.
My name is Erin Ho. I'm with L Row Signs.
Okay, and the gentleman's name?
My name is Merrick Metcalf. I'm with the ownership of the property.
Again, the first name?
Merrick?
Merrick, okay.
Yes.
All right, go right ahead.
Thank you for seeing us today. We're here to ask for an increase in sign square footage allowance. We're asking for 175 square feet. The code stipulates 49 square feet. This is the biggest store in the whole center here, in this new center. We do realize that it's over 100,000 square feet.
What store is it?
It's CubeSmart Self-Storage.
Okay.
Okay? Now, the building is set back about 300 feet from Sandy Plains, and we're asking for 2 signs facing Sandy Plains, 36 inches tall and 30 inches tall. We're also asking for 2 on the north elevation at 30 inches tall and 14 and a half inches roughly tall. So we do understand that it is more than the code allows, but we also understand that other stores in the center have larger signage, and we want to be able to be seen from the roadways.
Okay, what else do you want to tell us?
Just again, that we have a 3-story building out there. We're set 300 feet back. They will be internally lit signs. We are not proposing any signs on the south or the east elevations.
Are these digital signs? Are they metal signs? Are they wood signs?
They are metal signs with plastic faces, so you will be able to see them light up at night.
They're not digital, though.
They're not digital.
They're going to say what?
CubeSmart Self-Storage.
Self-storage.
And there is a lower sign saying wine storage that's small, that's about a foot tall.
Wine.
Wine storage. Wine.
No whiskey storage.
No whiskey storage, just wine.
Okay, that's good. Judy likes that. She's a wino, so she's good with that. I shouldn't say that. What else you want to tell us about it? I can't either. I don't. It's a long day. I apologize.
We just feel that we're asking for a modest increase for the size of the building and the location on the lot.
Mark, do you want to add anything to this?
So I represent the ownership group. We're a local family that purchased this facility. We didn't build it. We're sitting pretty far back there from the main road, and we're just worried that if we don't have this size signage, no one's going to be able to see us. We won't be able to attract business, and our business will fail. But
okay.
Before you sit down and finish your presentation, do you have a picture of the building? Sure. Could you put it up on the screen before you finish? So I think they can get a better idea.
We have a few different pictures. The west elevation is the elevation that faces Sandy Plains, and again, we're set back 300 feet,
Oh,
a little over.
is that a brick building?
It is, yes.
It is.
Yeah, kind of tell us a little bit, what it is.
Sure, so we're looking at a 3-story brick building.
Okay, self-storage,
Self-storage, correct?
climate control.
Correct.
Got to keep pulling it out of you. Got to give me some information.
Yes, it's a self-storage facility, all climate controlled, with a portion of it being specialized for wine storage, which has its own, climate itself. Outside of that, it's just a traditional storage facility.
Got any other pictures to show us?
The next picture will be the north elevation. This elevation faces a lot of other businesses in the center. It doesn't face any residential. Same with the west elevation. It did not face anything residential.
All right, anything else to show us?
We do not have photos of the east or south elevation since we are not proposing signage on either of those elevations.
That's good.
Okay, if you folks would have a seat at this time, we'll hear from the opposition. Thank you very much. Now, before we get started, I'm going to ask you to identify yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Janae Morissette.
Okay, and sir?
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Ledoux.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. First, I'd like to speak on concerns as a general community member. I'd like to point out that the large retail buildings in this area have the brand or business name as the main signage with the type of business as secondary signage. There are a few businesses with the type of business as a bigger font, but that's right beside the name of the business or the brand. Generic branding such as simply storage as the lone prominent sign does not fit into the high-end character that again and again was touted to the community during the rezoning process. I ask you to please take this into consideration. Speaking as a residential property owner, in the long-established suburban subdivision of Cutter's Gap, I ask this board to not allow any signage in the location of proposed sign number 4 or anywhere on the top half of the northern side of the building. It will be an eyesore from my backyard. According to the buffering plan on the approved plan set illustrated, which is coming up, I'm a little ahead, there we go. The shrubs planted between my property and the northern side of the storage facility are the Nellie Stevens holly. These shrubs grow to be 20 to 25 feet and grow in a pyramidal shape according to this Home Depot product page. This means that at full maturity, there could still be gaps between the shrubs, which may not block the view of this proposed sign number 4 from the view shown in this picture. And learning that it's going to be is even more concerning. There's a closer up. Now here's another view from my home. From this view, the hollies will certainly not grow tall enough to abate the view at all, especially in the winter when the deciduous trees have gone dormant. And I've got another view of that coming up. Furthermore, the location of sign number 4 creates little benefit for this applicant from my research. Traveling on Sandy Plains Road, Shelford Road, across Sandy Plains, you're looking down, you see no sign, no building for this storage facility. And we'll take a moment and do a U-turn here. And I wish I'd gone a little further down, but I'll address that in a moment as to why. Now we're approaching Sandy Plains again, going from the Kroger Shopping Center towards the Target. And looking down Sandy Plains, there is no advantage to sign number 4. Now we're on Holly Springs Road. We're turning right onto Sandy Plains Road. And we're about to pass the Mountain View Library. Now what you're about to see is their proposed sign number 2 in the background there. And there is very little benefit to the applicant for a number 4 sign. And then we'll turn around and traveling towards the library. On the right here will be the storage facility. You get just a glimpse.
I'm getting seasick.
The only view I found in the area where sign number 4 is viewable is briefly in front of the Kroger Shopping Center on Shelford Road or from the Kroger parking lot. Sign 2, however, is just as viewable. So sign 4 does not really add anything additional here. While signage variances have been granted in adjacent retail portion of this development, this ask is very different. This is affecting my view. Commercial signage viewable from suburban residential backyards create blight from the residential perspective and should not be granted. Our neighborhood is already experiencing other nuisances and eyesores from this new development. They are various that involve code violations, stipulations not being met, excessive noise, and eyesores. We have been communicating with community development and inspections since January and started communicating with Kathy Pickett and code enforcement almost 2 weeks ago. Communications with Ms. Pickett have been positive, but nothing is resolved yet. One item Ms. Pickett said she could not address is the blighted view of a tarp that's been hung on the chain link fence This tarp serves no practical purpose other than to hide the workmanship and materials used to meet the stipulation requirements regarding the buffer fence is substandard. You can see the slats falling out. That's what the black lines are. And there you can see the slats falling out. Are we really going to be stuck with this blighted view? In closing, or in summary, signage on the upper half of the northern side of the storage facility will create a blighted view for residential. Please deny. Signage on the upper half of the northern side of the storage facility will not benefit visibility from the road for the business. Again, we please deny. That's it. Can you go back? I didn't talk fast enough. Oh, there we go. Generic signage does not fit into the promised high-end theme promised for this development. Please deny. They should do better and make good to the community. Conditions in the official zoning minutes are not being adhered to. Please hold or deny until remedied. The residential is burdened by this blighted fence. Please hold or deny until remedied. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate your considerations.
When you showed pictures from your property, what side is that? Is that the north
That's
side?
the northern elevation.
That's the northern elevation?
Yes.
So, right, so accurately speaking, the northern side of the building is visible from your backyard?
Correct.
All right, cool. So I have a whole letter, and to be honest, I'm not really gonna read it. Sorry, love you. In a nutshell, where we are now with the signs is you're talking 20 steps of promises made and promises not kept. Now you're talking to, now with me up here, I'm not gonna get off on a tangent too much, but to give everyone the clearest picture, we've been woke up by them pouring concrete at 3 a.m. with no repercussion to construct that building. And I'm not saying you have anything to do with that personally. Maybe you came and bought the building after the fact.
You gotta just.
But I want you guys to, oh, I'm sorry.
Address us.
But I want you guys to realize, when we talk about compromise, the compromise has been very one-sided and everything to do with everything from that old Mountain View
Daniel,
property.
I don't want to stop you, but I just want to remind you that all we're here to hear is
Okay.
a variance case.
Okay,
Which is
let me
just
tie
a
that to
minimum
that now
on the
for you.
signs. That's all we're here, nothing else
Sure.
we can do anything about.
All right, the addition of just more light and more of something that could make another buzzing noise that keeps us up at night, I'm opposed to. And while I might not word it properly for, the setting, I would say this. Again, we're talking another proposed variance out of many variances, or many precedences were set, and they have broken them over and over again. Stipulations have been failed. This is just another. I have a letter. We have the neighbors signing this. We're a united neighborhood who opposes this and has opposed a lot of what has been allowed. I would like this document entered for the record, and I would also like it noted that we're getting additional signatures opposing the additional signage.
If you would just.
Do you need me to read this, or can I just submit
No,
it?
you only got a minute, 10
Cool,
seconds left.
I'm done.
Well, just give it to him, anything you want to pay, anything you want to submit, just give it to him, and the clerk will put it in the records. And you've got 30 seconds left. Go right ahead. Anything else you want to say?
I wish you guys good health and a wonderful day.
Well, I thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the public session on V91 over and complete. And with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Williams, who represents the district, to please lead us in a discussion.
You mean the wino? All right, I can assure everybody I'm sober, I've not had any wine, and that I'm capable of making this recommendation. When this piece of property came in for rezoning, we knew it was going to be a challenging piece of property at the time of zoning because of the way the buildings are going to sit far off of Sandy Plains Road. We have granted some variance in some of the other signs that are up, like shops that are up behind, I think it's Jim and Nick's barbecue place. So we have granted some there. I think this is a reasonable request on this one. on the front. I think that's a reasonable request. I don't particularly agree with the opposition. I don't think they particularly need the one on the back, which would be sign number 4. So those would be my comments. I think, given every time I've been out there and you look from down there, I don't think it's going to be a pollution or an eyesore for the signage on Sandy Plains, but I don't see the benefit of the one, which I think we're calling sign number 4, on the rear of the property. So those are my comments. If anybody else has a comment, I'm ready to make a
Any
motion.
other,
I'll just make a comment. It's listed here as sign 3 and 4, just to be clear, because I
Okay.
think there were 2 separate, and I probably wouldn't have a problem with it being a non-lit sign.
I could
You know,
do.
But it's up to you.
I could do it either one. I don't mind it being lit on the front because the other has
Right.
front, yeah.
Yeah, just thinking that this one is lit and maybe visible from the residential properties.
Yeah, I
You know,
think,
not being lit would be,
yeah,
okay, Fred, I think, has a comment too, Fred.
My only comment is just that I understood your comment, Mr. Chairman, to simply be that if and to the extent the representative from District 3 ever had anything to drink, it would probably just be wine, not hard liquor like you, Mr. Chairman, so.
That's true.
we have
Touche.
strayed so far from this
Touche.
variance, so far. I think my motion, I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead, Judy.
My motion would be to approve the application for signs. I guess it would be 1, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it'd be 1, 2, and 7, and deny the sign for 4, which would be on the north side of the property.
The signs that they're most concerned about are signs 3 and 4, and mostly sign 4 because it's up so high on the building. This one
Right.
says storage. I think sign 3 is the one that says wine storage that's below it.
Yeah, sign 3, I think is fine with me. It's sign 4 that's the problem. So we will remove sign 4. So I'm going to approve 1, 2, 7, 3, 6, and 5. Is that correct?
I believe so.
I could have put them in the right order, but a wino only goes backwards. So that would be my motion.
Well, and
Let's make sure we got it. John, Madam Secretary, you, everybody clean and clear? All right, I've got a motion, I've got a second.
John, you have a question?
Well, and just to make this super clear, so there's no mistakes that happen after this, we're approving the signs that you wanted to approve where they're shown on this building, so they can't move it, sign 3 up to where sign 4 was, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's got to be shown exactly, it's going to be built exactly where it's shown on these renderings.
Good point, yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Gotcha.
And that's exactly what the opposition asked for, so, thank you.
All right, I've got a motion, I've got a second. We're all clear. I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Madam Secretary, that's going to be a 5-0 vote. For those that were here in opposition, you mentioned Kathy Pickett. Kathy Pickett's in charge of code enforcement. Understand, this board, all we can deal with is what's in front of us as far as a variance. All the zoning questions, the code enforcement, all has to go through other people. But Kathy Pickett does an excellent job, and if you have problems, obviously continue on by speaking to her. All right, folks, with that said, I've got 2 little housekeeping things from the June the 10th meeting and also the July the 13th. I need a motion on both of those. I've got a motion to approve, second Galt. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Ladies and gentlemen, it's certainly a difficult time that we live in. I'd like you all to understand, take care of yourselves and take care of your neighbor, and we'll see you here next month. Thank you very much.